Hello, it's Philip Carr-Gomm here in Lewes in Sussex, welcoming you to Tea with the Druid, number 36. I've had a little trouble with my microphone here, so do tell me that you can hear me and say where you're from at the same time as you join in this conversation. It's a conversation which is unfairly weighted towards myself because I'm the one with the microphone. But everybody can see what you're writing, and I read what you're writing, so it is a conversation. And it all sounds good sound-wise, says Mike Amos. That's fantastic. So we've got California, Kent, Ohio, and Seaford here, as well as Utoxeter. Lovely. So fantastic. So make yourselves comfortable, and I will begin. That was how a radio program I used to listen to when I was a kid. It was called Listen with Mother, and she used to say something like, make yourselves comfortable, and now I will begin. So here we go. Fantastic. Now, there's a very interesting phenomenon that I want to explore with you, and you might think that to begin with, it's just a psychological phenomenon. But I'm going to bring in how we can use our spiritual perspective to look at this question too, because that's really what interests me, is spiritual perspective, psychological perspective. How can that help us to progress and grow and be of use in the world? So the fact is that when somebody shows their vulnerability, we very often find that attractive. There's something human about it. There's a lovely cartoon that I came across in a book. The famous comedian John Cleese. Well, John Cleese is also very interested in psychotherapy, and so he worked for a long time with a family therapist called Robin Skinner. And this book, Families and How to Survive Them, has lots of very witty cartoons in them. And here we have a cartoon at the back. Do introduce yourself. I don't know whether my comments feed has kind of stopped, but if you're piling in, do say hi and where you're from, and it'll be great to just see that you're here. Can you see this? I'm going to hold it up still. See that top cartoon? It's saying two people really finding each other attractive. Maybe they're even falling in love, and they think, what a divinely damaged person. And so I guess this is an experience. Isalinda from Portugal. That's fantastic. Okay, Louisville, Kentucky. Hooray, you're all here. Yeah. So we know this phenomenon that when somebody shows their weakness, their frailty, their fragility, there can be something really attractive about it. But for us ourselves, we feel it's very common for us to feel that it's not attractive for us to show our weakness, our fragility, our vulnerability. And now there's been some interesting psychological research published, which shows that this idea is actually a fact. We know now scientifically, they've studied people, and they find that people judge other people very favorably. If you show vulnerability, I will tend to judge you favorably, and I will think more of you. If I show vulnerability, I judge myself very harshly, and I think badly of myself. So that's unusual, and that's intriguing. How come we're so generous with our perceptions of other people and so harsh with our perceptions of ourselves? And the psychologists call this the beautiful mess effect, rather like this cartoon. They could be saying to each other, oh, what a beautiful mess the other person is. And that's why I've entitled this, our conversation, How to Be a Beautiful Mess. So they talk about the beautiful mess effect. And in the blog post, I can give you references if you want to look at the research or summary of their research in the British Psychological Journal, British Psychological Society's blog. But I wanted to go a little bit further now, because I guess we all know this. But if you think about it, you think if somebody shows too much vulnerability too often, then that becomes what you would call a turn-off. We start to experience somebody as needy, or as we might be rude and say they're stuck in victim consciousness or something like that. So there's a kind of line that you can cross, where instead of being attractive, more attractive by showing your vulnerability, you become less attractive. So this is tricky. It's even such a common kind of phenomenon, if you like. It's made its way into our language now, the language of social media, where we talk about oversharing. It doesn't only happen on social media. People say it to friends as well. People say, you're oversharing, and I didn't need to know that, and so on. So what do we do about this? How can we get a handle on this? The last thing we want to do is to be strategic about it, to say, oh, well, I'll show a little bit of vulnerability. I'll show a little bit of my weaknesses and my frailties to make myself more attractive, but not too much so I'm not needy. That's not a way to go about social relationships at all. It seems to me that the obvious answer is to thine own self be true, just to be authentic, to be natural, and to allow one's own intuitive sense of what is appropriate to work. Is just to be open when it feels right to be open, and to be a little reserved when it feels right to be reserved. And you can say, well, that's all very well, and that maybe takes years to learn. But essentially, I think that's the goal we're aiming for, is one is just authentic, natural in one's relationships, accepting that sometimes one might have been a little more open than was perhaps a good idea. At other times, perhaps a little more closed or withdrawn than was necessary. But, we all make mistakes, and, we're not going for perfection here. So that's one thing, is the idea of naturalness. But here's where the spiritual perspective comes in, I think, which is if our core identity is with our spiritual self, with our soul, if you like, then however much we might acknowledge or reveal our weaknesses or our frailties or our failings, at a core level, we're going to be operating from a sense of our soul, of our spiritual self, which by definition is invulnerable, radiant, filled with love, which is strong because it emanates from the source. It's fundamentally connected to the divine source. It's when I think we descend and become fully identified with the broken part of ourself that we can perhaps be experienced as being needy or being stuck in victim consciousness. But there's a way in which we can fully accept and own the brokenness in us, but have our core identification at the level of soul. There's a lovely quote from Paracelsus that goes, "Within every person is a heaven whole and unbroken." So my suggestion here is that that the spiritual life, the spiritual path, spiritual practices are all designed to lead us to a primary identification with our spiritual selves, ourselves as a spiritual being. And from that place of strength, we can then be open about our weaknesses and our failings and so on. So Selke says, I hate being vulnerable. It's not a comfortable place to be. But if our core identity is in our invulnerable, spiritual, radiant selves, then we can start to own and even show, to what degree is appropriate, our vulnerable self. So how would that translate into practice? Because you might say, well, that's all very well, but it's hard for me to do that on a day-to-day basis. Well, here's a suggestion, which is that one of the reasons why meditation can be so helpful, even in the little brief meditations that we have, is that they help to remind us of who we are. They help to remind us of our core identity, our central selves, if you like. Um, Nicole has the Dutch version of the book, but it doesn't have the cartoons. The cartoons are the whole point of the book. I'll give you another one just for a joke. I use an inflatable psychoanalyst. It keeps still so beautifully. It never fidgets. And then her companion replies, and of course it pays for itself in the long run. So John Cleese is recommended to blow up psychoanalyst. So yes, so the value of meditation is this identification with the spiritual self. So let's too much information, says Nicole. Absolutely. So let's now go into a meditation, and Beth is saying, I have trouble showing any vulnerability to others, which I think damages myself at times. Well, maybe it doesn't damage you, Beth. I mean, maybe you feel it does, but what's so interesting in that research, and maybe have a look at the blog post with the link, is what it shows is that when you show some form of vulnerability, people warm to you in a way. And so the kind of, what we're going for is, how can I show my vulnerable sense in a way that is comfortable to me, that doesn't leave me feeling unprotected in a kind of really uncomfortable way, but is somehow appropriate and people can actually relate to. So let's do a meditation now. And the meditation, I thought of when I was thinking about this is, okay, we've taken, if you like, a psychological idea, an idea about our relationships and about how we are in the world. And then we've looked at it from a spiritual angle and said, what can spirituality, how can it help? Can it offer any more insight? And my suggestion is, yes, it can, because it can suggest, the idea of naturalness, which is what nature spiritualities are doing. They're saying, try not to repress yourself. Try to be open to the natural flow of life. That naturalness and core identification with the soul. So let's do that now. Let's just, in our meditation, let's go into nature and identify with our spiritual selves. So to do that, let's just let go of all these thoughts for a while. We can just let go of these thoughts and just focus on sitting here. Each of us, all over the world, we know that we're in a community now of hundreds and hundreds of people all over the world, from Iceland to New Zealand to California to England to Russia and beyond. But here each of us is, and sense now any sounds you might be hearing from far away. Move your awareness to sounds you might be hearing just close at hand. And then move your awareness to sounds you might be hearing from within your own body, such as your breathing or your heartbeat. If they're not closed already, you might like to close your eyes to better concentrate on yourself. And just focus on your breathing, breathing in and breathing out. Not trying to change anything, just noticing how the breathing is effortless. You don't have to make any effort to breathe. It's as if you are being breathed. Your body is just being breathed. In and out. And you might like to become aware now of being in the sacred grove, just in a clearing in the forest, the earth beneath you, the trees around you, and the sky above you. And the earth supports you, and you allow all your cares and worries just to drift into the earth. You feel the stability of the earth beneath you. You sense the roots of the trees stretching down into the earth. All the life in the earth. And you feel the stability of the earth and the healing power of the earth flowing into your body, so your body feels stable, grounded, just gently and slowly attuning yourself to the rhythm of the earth. And you become aware of the trees around you. You sense their protection and their power, their roots deep in the soil, their trunks stretching up, their branches and leaves spreading high above you. And you breathe in the smell and the energy of the trees. And the energy of the trees flows through you, bringing you vitality and healing. You become aware of the sky above you, and you breathe in the light and the energy of the sky. And as you breathe in this vitality, the energy of the sky meets the energy of the earth within the center of your being. And move your awareness now, locate your awareness in the center of your being. And notice where in the body you feel this. Ask yourself, if I do feel a center, where is it? Is it in your solar plexus, in your heart? Whereabouts in your body awareness is it? And then just sense your awareness there and just imagine it's there. And if you can't sense it, just imagine you can sense it. Just imagine that your awareness is located in the center of your body, in the center of your being. And then just breathe in and breathe out at this center. Just sensing it like a radiant sun, like a center of brightness that is connected to the source of all being. Just breathing in and breathing out from the center of your being. And then just gradually allow that center, just the sense of energy or awareness at the center, to just radiate outwards. So it's radiating throughout your body, throughout your aura, throughout your being. And just imagine your inner eyes, sense your inner eyes opening in the sacred grove. And you might like to see other people in this grove too, but you sense yourself radiating, and you see other people radiating too, in a circle. Individuals sitting in front of trees, some distance away, all around in a circle. A group of fellow souls meditating in a circle together. Each being a source of light, of radiance and strength. And you sense the energy of the trees too. trees and the beings, this wonderful circle of energy. And then gently close your inner eyes just to focus again on your awareness. And feel your awareness of light and warmth through your aura and through your whole body. So you sense your whole body now, relaxed, warm, filled with energy, and filled with light. And feeling fully present to this warm energy radiating from the center of your being, you allow your awareness of the sacred grove to fade. And you become aware of being fully embodied, fully in your body, present here and now, seated in front of your computer or your mobile phone or your tablet. And just gradually feeling fully present here and now, you allow yourself to open your eyes. And so, here we are. Alain Giroux is saying it actually balances the whole self, vulnerable and strong. And I think that's the ideal we're aiming for in the end. Is, we think of all these things as opposites at the level of this kind of analytical mind, the logical mind. We think that being open and protected, vulnerable and safe, strong and weak, as opposites. But there's a way in which we can be both at the same time. We can be, as Alain was saying, we can be vulnerable and strong. We are, after all, beings who are wonderfully strong and strangely weak as well. We're filled with every kind of feeling and emotion. And gradually, and it's not easy to achieve this. And, maybe there are going to be times when we feel too open and too vulnerable, and times when we feel too closed and overly protected. And, I can see from your comments, you're pointing out all sorts of interesting, Heather is saying that sometimes she shows too much vulnerability and then people use it against her and they fall out and so. And it is tricky. I'm not minimizing that. But this is a work to be done if one's up for it. Is trying one's best, never castigating oneself, never pushing oneself to be more vulnerable than feels appropriate, never pushing oneself to be more closed than feels appropriate, but just try. That's why relaxation is so important. That's why, a good component of these meditations is relaxation. Because when we relax and we kind of sink back into our true nature, then it becomes easier for us just to know when to be open, when to be a little guarded, when to show our vulnerability, when to show our strength, and so on. And the key is this being able to relax into this. And so I will leave you now. I can see Jenny Ellen is almost falling asleep there. It's been a tough day, as she said. Thank you for being here. Your comments look really interesting. And so I'm going to make a cup of tea. I'm going to replenish my mug and make some more tea, come back, pop up the blog. In the blog, I've got a link to the article about this and some interesting quotes from the research. and have a lovely week. Many, many blessings, and see you again next Monday. And yeah, many blessings. Bye.